Almost 50 years ago, John Dean had warned of a cancer on the presidency. For the past 4 years, the cancer was the squatter. Donald Trump had no regard for our laws, our system of justice, or our democracy itself, and he was fine. And he was fine with destroying all of them if it served his personal purposes. The revelation that Trump's Justice Department secretly seized phone and email data from his critics, his perceived political enemies, and people whose loyalty he doubted, including the person that wrote this article, fits a bigger pattern of abusing the rule of law for personal gain. Trump systematically eroded nonpartisan safeguards and basically designed to prevent abuses of power. But now fucking remember this. He pardoned or commuted sentences of his felonious cronies, like the guilty guy, Roger Stone. You already knew he was guilty. Paul Manafort, Michael Flynn. In Flynn's instance, his Justice Department earlier had moved to abandon the case, even after Flynn had twice pleaded guilty. The Attorney General William Barr deliberately misled the public as to the contents of Special Counsel Robert Mueller's report on ties between Trump's campaign and Russia, and Trump pressured Barr and others to find non-existent fraud in the election that basically caused him to be ousted. Um, Trump had always treated the idea of justice with contempt, and his attorneys general as his personal fixers, just like his almost impeached predecessor and mentor Richard Nixon. Trump had sicked the power of government on his enemies with no regard for the rule of law, and it appears he took away all the wrong lessons away from Nixon's time in office. Um, um, Presidents help set the tone for America. The squatter Trump set a tone for bullying and phony machismo that lingers even after his ouster, as we see public health officials threatened, bottles thrown at NBA players, and decency disappearing from campaigns, and even the House floor. And this cannot be America's new fucking normal. And even Trump supporters should agree, or even sycophants is what I like to call them. Even Trump sycophants should agree our nation can't have a big brother who sees all, and wields government against anyone who disagrees. Political views notwithstanding, if there's one common ground in our fucking country, it's that this is a line that must not be crossed, and we reject dictatorship. We reject permanent one-party rule. We couldn't accept this kind of corrupt, abusive behavior from a mayor or governor, and we cannot accept this from a fucking squatter. I'm not suggesting that I or anyone else is off limits for lawful surveillance if there's probable cause to pursue it, but nobody is above the fucking law, and that rule applies to all those who enforce the law as well. Basically, people have served as an intelligence committee member for almost 7 years, and when classified information was leaked before Trump rose to power, the chairman Adam Schiff and basically Stovall were never targeted because there was no good reason to do so. The difference is that once Trump took power squatting in the White House, the chairmanship and basically Stovall helped lead the investigations into his undeniably worrisome political, personal, and financial ties to Russia, and we stood up, so we became targets. Um, his weaponization of law enforcement was straight out of the playbooks of the dictators and despots he idolized, and it remains particularly concerning because he and his sycophants believe he could become president again, which won't happen. Next time, Trump or some other equally corrupt but more competent squatter might not wait for a Justice Department investigation to yield evidence. He might just order that people be locked up per his lock her up campaign mantra for Hillary. And using the Justice Department to probe his political opponents is just one more abuse among many that Trump had perpetrated upon our nation. He leveraged foreign aid to coerce another country into producing dirt with which to smear an electoral opponent. He refused to concede an election that his own appointees had deemed free and fair, and he incited a resurrection against our democracy. But in Trump's mind, there's nothing worse than being a loser, because he already is. He's already a loser anyway. But he's the biggest loser ever to sit in the Oval Office, not because he lost the election on the landslide, because he tried so hard to undermine our democracy and rule of law. And luckily, our democracy and system of laws were too strong for him to hold. Were too strong for him this time. And there must not be a next time. So what we will do is critically important. The Justice Department has properly launched an Inspector General investigation into the abuse of subpoenas targeting Trump's political enemies, but that won't be enough. The Inspector General can only compel cooperation from current Justice Department employees and not former Trump administration officials such as William Barr, Jeff Sessions, and Rod Rosenstein. Getting those people on the record will require congressional action. Despite its obvious and serious imperfections, our democracy has thrived since the day that the President George Washington left office and gave our country its first peaceful transfer of power. And this nation will be a very and this nation will be a very different place if we all don't stand together right now and demand answers and solutions for what had happened, and unite and strengthen our institutions so that these abuses can never fucking happen again.